All right. So, as you all know, over the last couple of weeks, we've been talking about the crazy cycle, and we like to start off with this slide just to reiterate the point that we're here. This is one of the major components of this book, and being able to understand it and master it and be able to identify it is key to being successful. So, starting with the circle over there to the I guess your left, where it says the husband feels disrespected, and immediately his response is being unloving. And when the wife feels unloved, she responds disrespectfully, and then it goes right back up to the husband again. And then similarly, if when the wife feels unloved, she responds by being disrespectful. When he feels disrespected, he responds in an unloving manner, and it cycles right back up to to wives. And so, understanding that, I mean, it seems very elementary when you look at it here. It's all like, it's just four boxes. It's really just two actions that are pushing this, but it's the major thing. It's all like you have to be able to call it out, and you have to be able to call it out in yourself to say, I'm feeling disrespected right now. I'm feeling unloved right now. Let me make sure that I don't respond in kind, because instinctually, as humans, we always are looking for that hit back, right? We always are like, I'm about to come back after you. You have to resist the urge and the temptation to do that. So,
And I'll say, when we were preparing for this, we were talking about, okay, when did a situation like this happen? And so we were talking about, he said I mentioned this already before in marriage class, but I felt like it was necessary again. So apparently, like, us and some friends were out to dinner. And during this dinner, I said something about his mama. I don't know what it was, but I made, yeah, something, And it was always a back and forth thing anyhow, situation. But I said something like, bringing up a situation. And apparently me and Erica, who was out to dinner, was cracking up laughing, just like, cackling, like cracking up laughing, like real, real good. And it ticked him off. It was something simple. Like, I don't remember what I said, but I remember it was like something so blasé, but not to him. And so he mentioned that he just couldn't recover from it. Like, I guess because of how hard we were laughing. I don't get it, but I get not even what was said, but how hard we were laughing at it. And then, so he commences to, like, shutting down. Like, he commences to, like, getting quiet and stuff on me and acting real strange and stuff. And so then he mentions that, okay, I went to test the water and be like, let me just see for real. Like, are you upset with me for real about something? Because at this point I didn't know, but I just knew that he just started acting weird. And, like, I went to, like, make a move on him, like, hey, baby, and he just kind of, like, ignored me. And he said that sent me through the roof. He said that like, you said I was unraveled by that. And then from there, it was like a whole week long situation. And then finally, I kept asking him, I'm like, what's wrong? What's wrong with you? What's wrong with you? And he would say nothing, nothing, nothing. And then finally, at the end of the week, he tells me that I said something about his mama. Then that sent me back over the edge. Like, then I was 38. I was like, what? And even when we were talking about the conversation again last night, it was like, because I couldn't remember. Some of the details I can't remember. My memory's bad. So I was like, well, why did you do me like that? He was like, well, because you had said something that I'm like, whoa. But anyhow, these things happen. Like, he felt disrespected. I'm still trying to figure out why. But he felt disrespected, and he responded to me in an unloving manner. Like, when I made, like, an intimate pass at him, and he was all like, girl, please. And then I felt that. And so it just continued. The cycle continued. Not really sure even how we got off of it, but eventually we did, I suppose. I mean, we had to. So
yeah. And just to set the record straight, just to set the record straight, like it wasn't like, I stonewalled for a whole week when I had voiced what was wrong because, at this point in marriage, it's all like we should be better than or past this point. That was really what was the issue. That's when, it just escalated even higher. And then for that whole week, we were on a crazy cycle. It wasn't like it was just quiet that whole week. It was.
I remember it being quiet the whole week. So, but anyhow.
Yeah. So either way, but I think that the point still remains though, just in that scenario, okay, we see that we're going on a crazy cycle, right? I'm all like, okay, I feel disrespected by this comment. And, now to Neen's point, she was all like, okay, I'm not sure. Let me just make sure. Let me, come at this a different angle. Maybe there's something else, whatever. And to see me respond like that, she immediately regressed into disrespect mode, like just going off because it's just all like, that's the immediate reaction, right? And so then what does that entail? Me going right back into being more and more silent. And as the week goes on, it's like the exact same thing. And so we bring up that example to just show like how easy it is and how you don't expect it, but you have to be on guard for it.
I know that we're going through this cycle thing. I understand that husbands also have they lean more to wanting respect. But I don't want to overlook the fact that the same things that you all find disrespectful, women also find disrespectful, side comments, side looks, and so we can't overlook that too, as if women don't deserve respect as well, because that also can spin us, because you're asking that of us, and then it's, you want that, but we also want that too. And so it can't be overlooked. So I definitely want to mention that because, we're kind of hammering that part, but women also want respect.
Yeah, and I would go venture to say the same thing for men as well. It's all like men want loving behaviors too. So that's a good point.
Yeah, I think what the difference is just acknowledging that we both want the same thing from one another, but there's a difference in us wanting love, but you needing it, and then wanting respect, but us needing the respect. The one thing that I noticed that I wanted to say that sometimes really gets us is that when we don't really actually value one another's perspectives. Because I was just watching you guys when y'all were both kind of telling your points about what happened. And then when he started saying, this is, and then you was kind of like, that actually could have started a new cycle. Because you could have been like later saying, that wasn't how it went, and da da da. And then, that those little tweaks right there, when you don't really actually value each other's perspective, can send you through another situation. And I think that's kind of what happens with people, because if he would have kind of kept harping on, saying, and then you kind of felt like, well, man, you showing me up, you making me look bad. I said it was this, and then now you saying it look, you could have felt a little bit different about how we see things, and that's what happens. Women feel things differently than men when I feel like you presented me wrong, but men, we kind of overlook that. We don't see that. And so when we say certain things like that, we don't pay attention to that feeling aspect of what happens. It's kind of black and white for us. So
Yeah, that's a really
Anybody
good point.
else? One second. Oh, I'm sorry.
Well, I just want to say, Bert Brooks kind of hit the nail on the head. And he was saying the way we think, and that's very important in a marriage. Men think different than a woman. That's the way God made them. And most of the time, as men, we are not as sensitive as we should be. But me, myself, I just I learned to overlook it and keep going, but it takes time. But yeah, sometimes I think maybe God gave us the make we got, keep us on our toes, uh, especially with mine.
Let me hold that. Okay. Um, we live in a culture of trying to understand what respect is and what am I holding? Oh, which one? A culture of respect, right? And for men and women, it's different, right? We all want respect, but it's been challenging trying to, for the woman to really understand and validate what respect is for the man, because we want the respect too. But the way, like, as it has been said, the way God has wired the male to need respect. And then in that Ephesians 5 scripture, it says, wives, see that to it that you must respect your husbands. That means that we have to come outside of ourselves. And it's hard, I know. I've been there. Ooh, we struggle with that in the beginning to really validate what respect is for them. Like what we're doing that's disrespectful for them, to really acknowledge that and validate that, and to look to do things that is respectful for them. And when we do that, when we can respect them in the way they need it and really validate it, instead, because what we do, we fight it. But I don't think that's disrespectful. Well, why when I do this, that's disrespectful to you? I don't agree with that. And we'll fight them on it. And when we fight them on it, that's even more disrespect to them. And when they feel more disrespected, it's harder for them to love us. That's their reaction. And so we have to just learn how to do that for them.
That's a really good point.
Thank you.
Yeah, I think all of y'all kind of hit on it. Like, and I was going to bring it up. Like, did y'all notice how Neldra was all like, to this day, I still don't really know what was so disrespectful, right? And it's because sometimes we don't have to understand what it is. That's just the reality of it. It's just more so along the lines of like, okay, for whatever reason, doesn't really matter. Besides, this is just the way that God made this person. They find this to be respectful behavior, or they find this to be disrespectful. So let me, adjust accordingly. And the same thing for men with loving our wives. It's like in our minds, loving behavior may be like, okay, let's get on this fishing boat and go out into the middle of the ocean. It's all like, that isn't loving. I would rather be, somewhere else doing something that's more my thing. And so that's why we really kind of hammer home, especially these last couple of weeks, to make sure that you talk to your spouse to see what is loving. What do you really consider to be loving? Both ends. You need to know what's loving and also what is not loving, because you want to ensure that you don't accidentally slide into the wrong category. And the same thing with husbands and respect. So,
Yeah. Oh wait, one other thing. I'm sorry. One of the oh no, sorry. Over here.
all right. So moving over to what men fear the most, and we kind of hit on this a little bit these last couple of weeks, but criticism is a pretty big thing, and it's I don't want to say it's universal towards everybody, but for the majority of men, sharp criticism, especially in the way it's delivered, especially the way the words are put together. Well, like if it's poetic, it's just really hitting you in the heart. But sometimes that criticism, it can really, really cut sharply. And the book was talking about how for men, we have a biological response to this when we're being criticized, even if we're being gently criticized, right? It's just all like, you feel like, you're supposed to be on top of things. You're supposed to be really, making sure everybody's okay, but we're not perfect. And so when we have those moments when we are not perfect, it can get to you. I mean, you already feeling bad about it, but then to hear it coming out of the closest person to you, it just already invokes a response, right? And so he talked about how, you have an increase in your heartbeats per minute. And so to reactions are one of are usually the most common ways that men respond to this. So when they feel like they are being criticized or disrespected, they do one of two things. They either stonewall, which is just shutting down. I'm not saying anything. I'm not even in the same room with you and we sitting here next to each other. Or they walk away, right? They, leave, whatever, completely unresolved. And it just gives time and space for things to get even more worse than what they already are, right? And so, yeah. Any thoughts on that in terms of like how husbands do that?
One observation that I was just going to make to that, we typically don't look at men as fearing anything. And it's interesting the way it frames it there, what men fear most, and how that's attached to them feeling disrespected.
I'll say one of the things that I'm thinking about is how you mentioned that even when criticism is put in a soft way or a nice way or a respectful way, that they still have this biological response. My suggestion is that too, even when a man is faced with criticism, that you have to, I believe men have to frame it with this is not being said to hurt me. Because I think when you change your mindset about criticism, especially if it's constructive criticism, everybody has to be criticized in one way or another because some of that is helpful. But I think more so when this is talking about criticism as opposed to criticism being presented properly, this is like criticism in a way where you are overly critical of your spouse and or your husband, and to the point where it's just like kind of wearing them down.
Yeah.
That's kind of how I took that.
I think another thing too, and the reason I brought that up for the gentlemen in the class is because you have to have awareness of yourself. And like I said, it doesn't matter what environment you're in. You could be at work, you can be at church, you could be anywhere where, it don't even have to be your wife, it could be anybody else. You just instinctually, you just had this physiological response when you're being criticized or, critiqued on something that you did or didn't do. And so because of that, having that awareness within yourself, that will help you to not respond in a way that you're going to either shut down or walk away, right? It's like, like Nee was just saying, if it's coming out, in a way that is manageable, in a way that you shouldn't be, flipping out or anything like that, you got to get control of yourself, right? You can't simply be like, I can't take any of it, right? So, yeah, that's why I wanted to kind of bring that up for everybody. Let me see. Yeah, we can go to the next one.
So likewise, and I want to say to Erica's point as well, some of these exact same behaviors that are in the category of respect, those are also loving behaviors for women as well. Women also don't like to sit around and be criticized, about everything either. And so whereas that is a main fear for men, women also, I don't want to have to come in or BJ come in the house and he's like, why is this house dirty? You haven't had any, you cooked a TV dinner again. I don't cook TV dinners, but I'm just saying, you ain't iron my clothes. All of these things that are also overly critical, that also can display as unloving behaviors. A lack of emotional engagement, feeling alone, feeling unprotected, and insecure are some of women's number one fears. And when we were going over this, I was telling BJ, I said, think about actual creation. When man and woman was created, Adam was created first and then Eve. Adam actually spent some time alone in the garden. He was by himself. And so I see it as it is just in nature, just in nature from the way God made it at the beginning, men can easily withdraw and be by themselves. But a woman was never meant to feel alone. She was never alone in the garden. She came after. And by the time she came, there was a man there and there were animals who had names already. And so I believe that one of the most cruelest things a man can do to his wife is to make her feel alone. That is one of the most cruelest things you could do because we're not meant to feel that way. We're not meant to feel unprotected or to be standing in a place by ourselves.
That's a great point, which is one of the tactics that Satan does convince us, yeah, go be alone. Because you need to get away. You need to not let your anger build up. You need to da 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 da. All those things that you need to do. Because it sounds good because you need to do this or you're going to hurt this woman. So you might as well just go away for a moment, have your time. But the question is, if you're going to go be alone, what are you going to do with that time? Are you going to go away and pray? Or are you going to go away and just fester on how you feel and now it's all wrapped up in your selfishness? One of the things that I also wanted to say before is that, for men, we and women, when it comes to that respect thing, women need to find a wise way to understand their husbands. Like he could be telling you, he could be giving you all the clues as to what's going on with him in that disrespect. But depending on how he was raised, he may not have the skill set to articulate those feelings. And, most men don't grow up learning how to communicate and articulate emotions and fall into them and those kind of things like that. So that would be a good time for them both to explore that information.
Yeah, it's a good point.
Well, I guess the longer you be in it, the more you pay attention to your spouse. But I don't know if you're gonna ever get it right, I mean, it's good sometimes to walk away. You gotta know what's best for you and your mate. You done got in this situation before. So if you take walking away, then that's what you need to do. Because people are different. Some people like the order, So you just have to learn more about what your wife wants in life rather than thinking that you know the situation at hand, because she think totally different from me, And I learned that across the years. Then once I went to a marriage counselor, and they was telling all the things that women love to do, and I was like, wow, I never looked at it that way. It's something as simple as holding hands, That ain't never been a thing with me. But but I learned that she likes it, Because most of the time she'll reach and grab my hand. So it's gonna take time in a marriage to really learn, but I don't think you really never ever really know each other completely. It's I was thinking one time, I gave you this example. I said, wow, the clothes they're watching. That's a woman thing, So I said, what I'm gonna do about this, Lord? And I was like, the Spirit was telling me, what you gonna do? What you doing? And so I learned, rather than to bring something up to her, say something, I just do it myself. And I think that pleases God more so than getting into a big discussion about it. Because as husbands and wives, it ain't no love situation. Most of the time it's elevated, because you're not expecting that. But if you gotta walk away, I'd say walk away. Whatever worked best for you.
Yeah, I think that's a good point. Sometimes you have to get to a point in your relationship and in your marriage where you trust the response of your spouse, right? and know that, okay, this isn't them walking away because they want to leave me emotionally, detached and stuff like that, or, they're really trying not to resolve. I don't know if y'all had picked up what like Brother Brooks was saying here, where it's like sometimes, and this is also in the book as well, men stonewall because it's all like, I don't want to say the wrong thing now. And I know I'm guilty of that as well. It's just all like, I know if I say whatever, it's going to come out the wrong way and it's going to only accelerate this fire even more. But on the back end of that, I also have to make sure that my wife knows that, like, I'm not stonewalling you
Exactly.
to punish or as a response to this reaction. I just need a second to process. I'm literally thinking about this right now, and I want to make sure that when we have our discussion about it, that we do so in a way that is going to be fruitful, right? There's been times where we've had to just say, incident may happen. I need a few seconds. I need a few minutes. Let's talk about this later on so that we can really have a healthy discussion about it. But that's very different than we're in the middle of the argument and I just walk on the way. That's not going to work. Or I just give the glazed look and I'm just like, and that's the end of the conversation, right? Again, everybody has to be aware of their responses. And it's all like, at the end of the day, we have to be honest with ourselves. We have to be honest with ourselves, right? So,
And I think I don't want to make this sound like this is putting all of the onus on the wife, because also I don't think that's fair for men to give us clues
right.
about what we need to do to be respectful. Even if a man hasn't been raised in a way to express himself, maybe the wife hasn't been raised in a way to dig and boost up a man's ego. At the end of the day, in our relationship, we each have to be responsible for what we're doing. BJ is a very quiet man. And for a long time, he gave me clues about what is respectful. How was he giving me these clues? He would get mad. And I'm like, what are you mad about now? I needed him to communicate clearly with me because I simply cannot read between the lines in no situation. If you're trying to tell me something, you have to tell me straight ahead, because I do not know how. I'm incapable of reading between the lines. So,
Yeah, clarity is kindness. You hear it in a lot of different places, but you got to speak up. You got to say what's on your mind. And it's going to feel awkward, especially if you're not used to doing it. It's going to feel weird. You're going to be all like, it's just, but you know what? The more you exercise that muscle, the stronger it gets and the better off it becomes. So it isn't, it's a lifelong journey for us to get to know each other, but you kind of cut down on that time in terms of like us being able to resolve quickly by just having those open discussions and conversations. So
this slide, going from this to this, right? This is what we would like, but what we are about to say next is going to be a hard thing to hear. It's a hard thing to say, but this is from the book, and I really do feel like it's true as well. If you are in a marriage, I'm speaking to the ladies, if you are in a marriage that feels loveless, without affection, and loneliness, why are the ladies smiling at me? I just looked up and there was these grins. Okay, if you are in a marriage that feels loveless, without affection and loneliness, you are likely to be a disrespectful wife.
And similarly for the husbands in the room, for the men in the room, if you are in a marriage where there's a lot of disrespect, it's cantankerous, it's a lot of contention, more than likely you are an unloving husband. You have an issue with actually showing love. And I want you all to just really let that sink on you for a second, because I don't know if y'all have noticed, but a lot of this, we trying to push these thought processes to be more inward. Like, what am I doing? What can I do? Right? And so, Mike, yeah, sure enough.
Hold on. Now y'all speak your mind now. Speak your truth. Don't hold back. We're just facilitating.
I was gonna say, it's hard to show love if it's not in there. And when you're used to looking at or living that slide to the left, that becomes the norm. And whatever love you did have within you, it starts to dissipate more and more because you're in that cycle. You stay in that cycle.
Yeah,
It's good.
yeah, that's a good point.
I'm sorry, Mr. Manager.
All right, so when we went through marriage counseling right before we got married, one thing that stuck out was the minister told my husband to make sure you're constantly making love deposits. And as long as you're constantly making those love deposits on the days that you are not able to show that love, that those deposits will hold you over. But you got to remember, those deposits are only going to hold you until a certain time. One day that bank is going to get empty. And that is when you end up exactly where you just stated, or you get a disrespectful wife. Because at some point in time, it's just going to be like, okay, well, does he even really even love me anymore? And that's the point where we don't want to get to.
Yep.
I was gonna say, I'm sitting here literally like reflecting about a lot of different things in my marriage and just life. But, you have an idea of like what, that love looks like. And most oftentimes it's what you and your father's relationship is. And so when I was growing up, I would like, just do different things that my dad would like. He would like for me to, cut his nails. I enjoyed those things. I used to wash his hair. He's like, "You can wash my hair?" Of course I do, Daddy. And so I used to do those things. I really did. Cut his toenails, all kind of foolishness. But it didn't translate to him like it translates to my father. And so I was left in a space of feeling as if what I am doing doesn't matter because it didn't matter to him. Maybe it did, but it didn't translate to me as if it did. And so I stopped. And so little by little, I do less because I know that if I do those things, it doesn't matter. And so because I'm being taught that those things don't matter, I'm like, okay, all right, whatever. And this is literally what I'm telling myself. So I'm hearing this and I'm like, okay, how can I be more respectful? And I'm like, I get that you need this. I get that you need that. But then if I only have an example of those things that I used to do for my dad that I know he appreciated and loved because he would ask me to do those things and I enjoyed doing those things because he was thankful. So if there's no thankfulness in the acts that you do, then it's like, I don't need to do them.
Yeah. Yeah, we're gonna get to that part. Like all three of y'all comments is like right on point for, the next part of this discussion.
One of the things that I wanted to severely point out is that our spouses are motivated when you're meeting their primal need. God gave each of us different needs, and the need for a man to be respected versus the need for a woman to be loved. Your spouse is motivated by that. Like, we're to the point. Okay, I won't even go into that. I'll just say today, our focus is teaching how to recognize early signs of starting the crazy cycle and knowing how to exit them. Exiting the crazy cycle by, number one, knowing how things start, which is typically by the way that you deliver an issue or conversation and your tone, and then knowing how to exit it by creating a new response, a brand new response. Okay. I did want to respond to the comments in a little bit, And that is a lot of times when we're on this crazy cycle, it is based on I'm responding to the way someone responded to me. It's like you respond, I respond, you respond, I respond over and over and over again. So one of the things that we will talk about as this class goes on is being respectful and loving in a way that's meaningful to your specific spouse and your specific spouse and your specific spouse. For me, what is respectful for BJ or disrespectful for BJ is not necessarily disrespectful for Brooks. Like even the exchange that we had, I know him well enough to know if I'm like, nah, that ain't how I seen it. That's not going to do anything for him. But if I were to get up and challenge him and be like, well, first of all, that's not what we said, and talked about his preparation, that would be a different thing. You have to know what is meaningful to your spouse. Otherwise, you're planting seeds in a garden that will never grow. You're planting seeds in a way that's like, like for me, I like carnations. It's a cheap flower. It's probably one of the cheapest, but I appreciate carnations more than roses. And so if he were to bring me home a bouquet of roses, everybody else would be like, oh, look at him. He done brought you 30 roses. That's beautiful. I'm going to be like, oh, thank you. That's not, I'm not going to tell him that, but he knows my flowers are carnations. Because my daddy used to bring me carnations.
Yeah.
And those things are important. My daddy's bringing me cheap flowers. See? Now that's, see, Daddy?
Yeah. But that's a really good point. It's you have to know exactly what it is that your spouse needs, because it looks different. And also, I'm gonna just, speak to the husbands in here. That evolves over time. What worked yesterday may not be the same thing that works today, which may not be the same thing that works tomorrow. It's just one of those things that you just have to be in constant communication with. You have to just make that effort to just say, what is it something that you really actually like? And be okay with just tinkering around and just trying to, continue to build off of what you already know. The last thing, because I know that we're out of time.
I'm sorry. I wanted to say real quick too, because we've heard one of the things that the book points out is that a lot of marriage classes and a lot of marriage material talks a lot about how a husband needs to love their wives. But it's also important that while husbands are doing these love deposits, that a wife reciprocates. You just can't be taking all the love and be like, cool, thank you, thank you, thank you, and not reciprocate those respectful things. Like, you are just supposed to be doing these things for me. I'm the wife, I'm the princess. Make me feel beautiful, make me feel great. There also has to be a level of respect reciprocated, but you gotta know what those things are that are meaningful to your spouses.
Yeah. The last thing I was going to say about it, and we're going to hit on this a little bit more next week, is, sometimes it's only going to be one person who's making the moves. Somebody has to be the vulnerable one. Somebody has to say, you know what, in spite of this unloving behavior or this disrespectful behavior, I'm going to continue to do my part. I'm going to continue to do my part. Sometimes that love deposit bank, you operate in the red for a long time. It could be a season, it could be years. And that's a hard thing to feel. It's hard to feel like, hey, I'm putting in all this effort and I'm not seeing any kind of reciprocity, right? That doesn't mean that you just blindly do it, but you do need to continue to bring it up in a way that is respectful, in a way that is loving, to say, hey, that what you've done or didn't do, it's really affecting me, and this is how it's affecting me, and if they want to try to challenge you, well, they can't now, because it's all like, I've been doing my part, and especially if you've been doing your part in a way that they have voiced and said that this is what's important to me, right? Buying the carnations over the roses, right? So
That's actually a godly model that you just described, because that's exactly what God does for us. He loves us when we're unlovable.
yeah,
He comes after us time and time again.
yep,
And it's a hard thing for us humanistically to do sometimes.
Yeah.
But that's the thing that He requires us to do. And when we're actually focusing on our spiritual nature, it becomes easier to do because we're reminded of what Christ did for us.
Yep.
That's right. And in fact, that is one of, we have a little poll.
Yeah, we'll have to get
You
it
know,
next week.
you said do it next week?
Yeah, right. Because it's already now 49.
Ain't nobody here. What y'all think? Is it okay?
All right, yeah, let's go ahead and take the poll.
We're gonna do it real quick. After a disagreement, who should make the first move towards reconciliation? Husband, wife, whoever started the disagreement, whoever is most mature, or both? Who should make the first move towards reconciliation? I just kind of wanted to slide into this, honestly, because we're still very, very behind. Who did that? See, yes. Point a finger. We only got 4 people voted. Oh, okay, there we go. Okay. Oh, y'all changing your answers. So actually, the correct answer is whoever is the most mature. Whoever is the most mature. I will say 100 times, BJ has always been the most mature in our marriage. Even when I have been wrong, he still makes the first move. This is why we have a really great marriage. And it's just honest. Even when I'm wrong, he makes the first move. He'll say, I'm sorry about the way this went down, but you need to look at your behavior. You need to see that you did X, Y, and Z, and that was inappropriate. And I said it in one class, I'll say it again. This is him leading me. This is him coming, chastising me, spanking me on my hand in a loving way, and saying, now you come here, wife. This is how we need to do this, and this is how it's going to go in this household. And me, I'm not resisting that. I'm not jacking away and saying, and being offended. I set my posture to not be offended, and when he leads me, I follow my husband. Yes, BJ is way more quiet than I am. I'm the talker in our relationship. I am the visionary in our relationship, but he's the leader, and I follow the leader. One of those things that are very, very critical is that someone has to be the most mature. Now, I'm not saying that's true for every marriage, because I know in certain marriages, it's the woman who leads, where she says, hey, husband, I'm sorry that this went down this way, but this is what you did, and this is how I feel, and let me lead us out of this crazy cycle. But somebody has to be the one to put the boots on and say, let's go this way through this valley. This is where we are. Let's get out of it. And no one should feel upset that your spouse is not the one leading you out. You should not feel offended or upset if your spouse is not the mature one. Because at the end of the day, we're all trying to get to the same place, which is a good and happy marriage. But you should not be upset or offended if your spouse is not on the same level as you, if your spouse is not in the same level of maturity or mindset as you, and not ready to do those things. Sometimes in some seasons, everybody has to be the leader. Someone has to be a follower. And nobody should be upset if you're not, hook, line, and sinker. You're like, I'm upset that you got a weakness that I don't have.
Yeah.
So.
I just want to, again, just kind of reiterate that same point that, again, sometimes you may be the only one on the island, trying to lead. And that didn't happen overnight. What Neldra just described, that took years and years of refinement, of discussion, of us going through it for us to get to a point where it's easily identifiable now. We're in a situation, okay, my husband is leading us to reconciliation. Let me follow. That wasn't always the case. It used to be, I'm trying to lead you, and it's like, whoa, get off me, and it's just all like, it just got to keep going and keep going and keep going. And vice versa too, the way that she described that scenario earlier, where it was like, let me try to reconcile. And I'm just all like, I'm good, you know? And so it took us a while to get there. And that's because the desire for us to be in a peaceful state outweighed that innate, very, very quick response that's been built into us and stuff like that. So again, for those who are like, okay, my spouse is really not coming along with me on this, I would just say, don't give up. Don't grow faint of heart of this. Just continue and continue. You know, eventually the behavior is going to stick. You know, I say this to a lot of people. It's hard to argue with somebody who's not arguing back. It's, you know, eventually you just be all like, I sound crazy. I'm sitting up here yelling at myself. But they're not coming at me with their, teeth gnashing and stuff like that. So why am I doing this? Right? So
we are done, but
what?
this is literally our last slide before our homework. I kind of really want to just put this out here, and we'll dive into it next week. But the concept of unconditional love and unconditional respect. Oh, that sounds like cuss words. This was. We're gonna dive into it next week, but I just kind of want to put this out here. Mike actually started this discussion. Why is it so hard to show love? When you feel like your spouse does not deserve it? Why is it hard to show respect when you feel like your spouse does not deserve it? We're going to jump into that next week. But just kind of set your mind into that. If you want to, again, go on your Chat GPT or Google, what is unconditional love? What is unconditional respect? What does that look like? What does it mean to God? We're going to really dive into like what Anthony Brooks was just talking about, is the way you go about your marriage like it's a Christian duty. Mm-hmm. Like, you're not doing this. I'm not respecting you because you supply for our family. What'd you say? Just because because you want me to. Yeah. Because you supply for the family. Because you know how to fix stuff. I respect you because God requires me to. That's my duty. And I take it seriously. Love, the same way, to do the love one too.
Yeah. Just no, I mean, but yeah, just pretty much the exact same thing. It's just all like, in spite of the absence of respect. And it's not that I need to show love just because you want me to, or because that's the expectation. It's because, again, as Christ loved the church, like Brooks just said, God comes back to us regardless of everything that's going on. He always circles back to us. And it isn't like there's some tally. There is no, there's nothing that is in place for him to, I don't say in place, getting tripped up over my words, but at the end of the day, being unconditional in the way that you love your wife, and not necessarily looking at it from a score perspective, mm-hmm. or from I deserve this X, Y, and Z or whatever, but looking at it more as like a ministry in terms of like, this is the person that God has given me. Mm-hmm. This is the person out of 8 billion people on this planet, God has given me this woman to love and to show love unconditionally. And that's what I'm charged to do. So
we're going to do our closing prayer over a couple. While the brothers go out and do their, after our prayer, while the brothers go out and prepare for service, I'm going to put this assignment up there for the women to write down in your books. So this is something that you all can do. This is for the husbands and wives, but the brothers are going to go out and prepare for service. If the women can take a picture or write this down, so this is what we can reflect on throughout the week. We're going to circle up today and let's pray for, who you want to pray for?
Keith and Erica.
Yeah, let's do this. All right, we're going to pray for Keith and Erica. Right. Circle up on them.
I'm going to turn it on the microphone.
Yeah.